welcome to the Takarazuka Review Fan Podcast, the podcast by fans for fans, around the world as we talk about Takarazuka shows, actresses, and any gossip we want to talk about. Today's episode is going to be focusing on Moon Troupe, but before we jump into that, I have one announcement, and then I'll introduce who's going to be with you today. So, here is the top secret fun news that we've been trying to spring on you for a while. As some of you know, November 28th was our 1-year anniversary. Yay!
Yay!
And right now is also our season of giving. So, in honor of both of these things, we will be having a gift giveaway to our podcast listeners. In the tradition of fukubukuro, or lucky bags, which are given out by stores in Japan around the New Year time, we're going to be giving out packages of Takarazuka goodies to 4 or 5 lucky podcast listeners. So the goodies are going to range from official goods to some OG fan club goods or maybe certain performance goods. If you're interested, please visit our blog at kaathian.net/Takarazuka podcast and leave us a comment before New Year's Eve. We should have a specific blog post up for the gift giveaway, so see if you can hunt that blog post down. More information on the drawing and the winners will be announced in future episodes, so keep your ears peeled. So today's episode is going to be about Moon Troupe, or Tsukigumi, and today we have with us Jen in New York.
And Carly in New York also.
And Becca in California.
Awesome. So let's get started with some happy things. Let's start with the wonderful West Coast.
Oh,
Becca,
okay.
what's your happy thing?
All right. So my happy thing is Shirobyu, who is a 96 from Hoshigumi, got to be a police chief for a day in Takarazuka, and so there are pictures floating around of her in a police uniform with her really dorky, wonderful smile. I've been lucky enough to be able to go to her ochakai a couple of times, and she's just so happy and sweet, and so being able to see her looking like that in these pictures made me really happy.
I have a question for you two who have lived in Japan. Why is police chief for a day a thing?
Oh.
That was totally going to be my question.
I've seen it. Well, it's been a thing in Takarazuka for a while. I've seen a lot of pictures of different Seito in these police chief outfits, but it's also in like Sailor Moon and stuff too. Oh, yeah. So it's obviously a cultural thing, but it's so weird to me.
I don't know the actual reason, but I'm assuming that it's to promote the police force. Shrug.
It's almost like something you would expect at elementary school, right? Like the police force visits and a little kid gets to dress up. Doesn't it seem like that?
It does.
Yeah, I don't know. Mystery. Listeners, if you know the answer to this question, please let us know. Why is police chief for a day a thing in Japan?
Huh. I guess I never thought about it.
It's an excuse to dress up in cute costumes.
It is cute.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Carly, how about you? What are your happy things?
So, on Monday, in celebration of the JLPT being over,
woo!
Which was not a happy thing, I took the day off of work and I watched Anjumira shows for 12 hours with some friends, and that was amazing. It was so, well, I adore her, so it was amazing. And there were a few shows that I saw for the first time. The one that probably left the biggest impression on me was Megavision, which was her last review. Has a scene in it that was choreographed by an American choreographer who I believe worked with the Rockettes. And I I don't know much about dance from a technical perspective. I've never really been a dancer or watched dance specifically outside of musicals, but it was amazing to see the contrast between the choreography in that scene and the normal Takarazuka choreography. I hadn't really noticed before how starkly different they were, but it was so cool to see them dance that scene. I really, really liked it, and it was just an emotional and relaxing, wonderful day.
Oh, so for listeners who don't know, can you fill them in on who Anju Mira is?
Yes, she was the top star of Flower Troupe in the early 90s. She was very known for her dancing ability, and she is now still a choreographer in Takarazuka, even today.
I heard once that when Takarazuka came to New York in the early 90s, that it was, I don't know if it was American choreographers, but apparently they tried to choreograph it in a much more Western style.
That doesn't surprise me because it starred Ora Mizuki, I think, very shortly after she retired from Takarazuka. And I know she went on to be a pretty well-known dancer just in the world, even outside of Japan. So it seems likely that that's something they would have tried to do with that show.
Yeah.
Was it Jim Clark? Is that who you're thinking of, the choreographer? Because he did a bunch of like Takarazuka shows in the 80s and like one in the 90s. I wasn't sure if that was the one that you were talking about, Carly.
Oh, from Megavision? No, it was definitely a woman. I forget her name off the top of my head, but it is on the Megavision wiki page. We can add it to the blog.
Linda Haberman.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
She was also she did a bunch in the early 90s with Takarazuka.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a lot more, I feel like, in the 90s than there are today of like American Broadway choreographers.
Wow.
Apparently
I'm sure part of it was because it was Anju Mira's Taidan show, and her dancing and Hanagumi's dancing in general was such high quality at that time. But it was so impressive. I would really love to see some other review scenes that she choreographed at that time.
Did you see The Flash?
I think I've seen The Flash. It's been a long time, so I can't remember it clearly, but I'm pretty sure I've seen The Flash.
Because I think she did The Flash, some of the scenes in The Flash too, and Takarazuka Dreams, the show that they took to New York, Becca, that you were talking about. I think she did some of those too. Yeah.
Bit of a tangent, but apparently one of the ensemble members in Robin Hood Men in Tights sometime in the last 10 years did some choreography from Yukigumi. I'll have to remember the name, but I remember someone showing me the clip of this guy going, "Hey, nani, nani, nani," in the whole sequence and being like, yeah, he choreographed for Yukigumi.
That's so random.
That is hilarious.
I'll see if I can find it later.
We have a whole list of like visiting staff, foreign staff. If you look on the Takawiki on the staff page and scroll down to the very bottom, there's a chart of like all the ones that we've noticed and added at least. So feel free to add to it if you know anybody who's missing from it. Awesome. So I guess it's time for my happy things. And I promised I would keep one short, and I'm going to try and keep the other one short too. So Ryu Misaki has announced today, as we're recording this, it's December 9th, and Masaki announced that she's going to be doing a new dinner show. Yay! Pachi pachi pachi!
Yay!
So it's called Muse. We don't really have any other information yet, but if you have a spare $300, go and check it out. She's going to be performing in April and May. Oh, dinner shows are crazy. Mm-hmm. My other piece of really exciting news is Shibuki June, who is another top star of Moon Troupe, and she's my favorite top star in Takarazuka ever. She, every 5 years or so, does a big kind of anniversary concert after her retirement, and this year was her 30th anniversary since she joined Takarazuka, actually, not since her retirement. So 30 years in the entertainment industry. And this concert was called La Historie. And she actually went back and did a lot of her otokoyaku scenes from when she was in Takarazuka, which she has not done before this point. And so I was super excited to see these pictures going up of the performances, and she's wearing her suit from Guys and Dolls, and I was just like, oh!
Ooh.
It made me really, really excited.
I think I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah. And it also looks like the pictures that I'm looking at aren't really labeled, but it looks like she's really wearing the red dress. She played Liza Minnelli in a lot of performances over the years after her retirement. So it looks like she did some of those scenes. So it looks like a pretty cool mix of things. But she also mentioned, you know, when she was talking after the concert, she said that she decided it was kind of time to go back and say goodbye to her otokoyaku self that she hadn't really done anything with since she left Takarazuka, which is kind of a lie, because she did play a lot of male roles after she left Takarazuka.
Yeah.
But we'll ignore that. And, but this was the first time she's kind of gone back to her Takarazuka otokoyaku roles. And yeah, but she also says that this is probably the last time she's ever going to play a male role, so sad.
Can you ever really escape it? I don't know, probably.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
She's cut back on all of her stage performances lately. She seems to be focusing on her TV career a lot more, so I could see that, you know, in her TV career she'll be playing mostly the female roles. So I believe her. I do.
Okay.
But, yeah. I got to see her play Hikaru Genji once after she left Takarazuka, like, as an OG, and it was awesome. She never really lost that flair. Sorry, I'm like giggling and blushing over here. This is really embarrassing.
That's adorable.
That's so cute.
Alright, anyway, I promised I would keep that short, so that's my happy thing anyway. It just made my day. I have not been getting onto the news lately, so this was actually my first time seeing these pictures today, and it made me really happy. Yay!
Well, please post a link. I want to see them.
Okay, I definitely will. Yeah, everything we've talked about so far in our happy things, we will spread the joy by posting them on the blog, so please check them out. Including, you know, dressed up as the police chief. Yes.
Yes.
Alright, so today's topic is Moon Troupe, or Tsukigumi, which was traditionally known as the second troupe created in Takarazuka. And I thought I would start by asking everybody on the podcast today what their impressions of Tsukigumi or Moon Troupe are. If I say Moon Troupe or if I say Tsukigumi, what are you thinking of? What is your imagination of their style or anything that comes to mind? So, Carly, how about you?
Okay. It's a little different for me thinking of, I guess, 90s Tsukigumi and earlier versus early 2000s and later. But I think and I haven't seen maybe the widest sampling of shows, but I have this image of some maybe slightly alternative shows in the 80s and 90s. Like, I know Suzukaze Mayo played a lot of roles that you don't really think of as traditional otokuyaku roles, and Makoto Tsubasa had a lot of just kind of weird shows.
Yep.
And so I just have this sort of, not off is not the right word because I don't think of it as a negative thing, but maybe slightly experimental impression of earlier Tsukigumi.
Okay.
And then now I feel like they mess around with them a lot, also not in a negative connotation, but maybe experimental is still the right word, but rather than doing it through the types of shows that they're getting, I feel like they're trying a lot of different things, like the whole double Nibante thing, which has happened twice now, with first Ryu Misaki and Asabi Ryo, and then Nagi Narumi and Miyarurika, for example.
You could probably, if you follow that, you could argue like Ozora Yuhi and Kirian, you know.
So maybe experimental is a good word for my impression of Tsukigumi.
All right, that's really cool. How about you, Becca?
Carly, you just took a lot of the things that I was going to say.
Sorry.
You can expand upon
all
her.
right. So in addition to this isn't my only impression of the troupe, but rather than just relying on the stereotypical, oh, they're very Western musical-esque, I'll go with something more interesting, is that they do sometimes seem like the troupe where kind of unusual things happen, and not that these things don't happen in other troupes, but there are a number of double Nibante situations. The hot moment when Yumasaki and Asumirio were technically both top star of the troupe. And then also there's been 2 periods within the last 15 years or so in which the top Musumeyaku spot was vacant. Once with Ayaki Now, and then the second time with Seina June. So sometimes when it seems like there's a big controversy that's going on, it seems like poor Tsukigumi is stuck in the middle of it. But I think they've managed to, still weather it and be a very successful troupe regardless.
Yeah, building off of that, I always felt like one of the reasons they could get away with it, not having a declared top musumeyaku, is that they had a lot of really strong upperclassmen musumeyaku at the time, especially with Seina June. I feel like maybe some of the older directors were thinking, oh man, we've boxed ourselves in with this top star system and in the beginning it wasn't so structured, right? The stars would travel from troupe to troupe, from show to show, and there wasn't really a top star. There were a lot of stars, and they could pull people and do different things. And then as it solidified, ossified, I don't know how you want to put it, they're like, okay, there's one top star and one top musumeyaku, and everybody else is gonna get kind of crap roles. Sorry, you're stuck with it. That's the Takarazuka way. Maybe not so much with the otokoyaku, but nibante musumeyaku roles are usually okay, and then after that there's nothing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of cool because they got to do a lot of very original Takarazuka shows, which actually had a wide variety of stronger female roles. I know my opinion on this is a minority. A lot of people don't think that, but I thought it was actually pretty cool at the time.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, as some of the directors who really stuck it out late into their lives being accustomed to the earlier system where there wasn't a top star. That's interesting and completely true.
Huh.
Yeah, a lot of the board of directors, a lot of the directors who would have had seniority, and in Japan seniority is everything, started in the 60s and 70s. So I feel like they were there for that shift. I don't know if that's true or not. This is me projecting a lot, but that's
it sounds legit.
So I was in fandom during the Seina June period when this was going on, and from my perspective, she had already been doing the top star position for a few years. She was, in my opinion, already looking kind of tired at that point, and it just felt like, with the announcement of no top musumeyaku, there was this feeling that, okay, when is she going to retire? And it just felt really dragged out because of that, in my opinion. And I still think the decision to do Elizabeth with no top musumeyaku was really weird. Unpopular opinion.
That's Koike Sensei. Koike Sensei's got to do his,
She was involved in both Elizabeth with no top musumeyaku situations.
She was, yeah.
Now that I think about it.
That and poor Nagina Rimi. That whole it was just a very weird kind of situation, in my opinion.
I gotta argue with you though, because I feel like some of my very favorite shows came out of that period, so I guess it depends on your point of view and whether you like the shows that were coming out during that period or not. Maybe, I don't know, but
I liked Appassionato.
Yeah, I liked Floating Bridge of Dreams, and Mahoroba was awesome. Well, wait, no.
Oh, BC, but that was back when
right. She was still there.
When Mihoko was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she wasn't there for Floating Bridge of Dreams, though, was she?
No, she wasn't. That was the first show after Me and My Girl, after Mihoko or Ayano Kanami had left. And that, to me, was kind of the cutoff point when it got weird.
That's like one of my very, very favorite Takarazuka shows. So, I don't know. I guess it's an opinion thing. Now, Becca, you mentioned the traditional kind of cliched Western musical thing. I guess I got to clarify that for our listeners who are like, what is she talking about? Moon Troupe has traditionally kind of been known as the Western musical troupe because they did like the Western musicals that came over in the mid-60s. Like they did Oklahoma, they did West Side Story, they did, what else am I thinking of?
They were the first troupe to do Me and My Girl in the late 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did a lot of those, and I think, like, during the 80s, and even into the 90s when I started becoming a fan, that was what everybody said. Oh, Moon Troupe is the Western musical troupe. And then I think lately it's been, like, the young kind of pop idol troupe a lot of people have been thinking. I don't know if I agree with that viewpoint, but I've heard people banding that around.
I think because they're young. I don't know that they really have that pop idol image, but I can see people associating youth with that. So I guess that's their argument, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Any other impressions or things we wanted to talk about for Moon Troupe?
I'll just say on the topic of, if funny things have kind of happened throughout the history of Moon Troupe, I feel like they can get away with it because it's such a classic troupe at the same time. Like, it was one of the first.
True. Yeah, could be. I don't know. It's interesting. I never really thought of it as, like, the experimental troupe, so I'm glad both of you brought that up, because that's interesting.
Well, it is in a very recent slice of history that I think of them as experimental. I mean, they've been around for most of Takarazuka's history, and I'm really only thinking about the early 90s and forward. So that's a really tiny slice of their history, but it's also the most recent, so it's just what sticks with me the most, I guess.
We're making history right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of history, hey, let's follow that thread.
That was such a good segue.
I like that. Moon Troupe. Officially banded together in September of 1921, same time as Flower Troupe. Their first performance was that September in the Kokaido Theater. The color that they're associated with today is yellow, because of the moon, just like Flower Troupe is associated with pink. So you'll see them in yellow a lot during specials and things like that. We've already covered that they did a lot of the early Western musicals that were brought over. So just quick and dirty, some of the top stars from the very, very early days that you may have heard of before. Amatsu Otome joined Takarazuka in 1918. And she was one of the first girls who was actually recruited from Tokyo, if I'm remembering correctly. Before that, most of the actresses were from the Kansai region in Western Japan. But the owner of Takarazuka decided that he kind of wanted to widen the appeal, so he went and did a little recruitment drive in Tokyo, and he came back with like 3 girls, I think, from Tokyo that year who joined, and I believe Amatsu Otome was one of them. She actually remained a member of the review until she passed away in 1980, so
wow,
that's crazy. That's like 62 years. I can't imagine doing something for 62 years. In her later years, she was very, very popular for her Japanese dance, traditional Japanese dance. So I think it's just so cool. I love the history that Takarazuka brings and how they managed to bridge from the very, very early years into the modern era, mostly through these women who are like living history that they had with them, which I think is really pretty cool.
And was she in Senka towards the end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Okay.
Some of my very, very favorite vintage Takarazuka stars. Sia Fukuko, who was a member of the review from 1921 to 1942. She has been called perhaps like the first fairy style otokoyaku. And she's also one of the first women who cut her hair short as an otokoyaku member of the review. So a lot of firsts for her. And she's very, like, when I see her pictures, she's very stunning. I don't know, there's something about her that just really stands out. So check out her profile. If there aren't any pictures up on her profile in Takawiki, I'll post them up in the blog because I have some. She's very cool.
Jen, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, you said she was the first one to cut her hair short. Before then, did they keep their hair long and they just put it in a wig when they were playing Otokoyaku, or what happened?
Yeah, basically. And a lot of the roles that they were playing prior to that, like early Takarazuka performances were ballets or short operas, things like that. And a lot of them were either fairy tales or like traditional Japanese plays. So the male characters would have had long hair anyway, like pulled back in ponytails and things like that. I believe. That's what it looks like in the pictures anyway.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it makes sense. Like, they started cutting their hair in like the 30s, I think, which would have been about the time it was starting to become acceptable in modern society for women to be cutting their hair short. It was still kind of racy, I think, at the time. But, you know, bobs were becoming popular in the 20s, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And plus, think of the Takarazuka review was a little bit more traditional even then, I think. That's, I mean, you know, he was trying to get these young women to join his school, so I'm sure he wasn't saying, you know, send me your daughters, I'm going to turn them into these racy flappers. So...
Even though I've always known that Takarazuka is that old, there's something that boggles my mind about thinking that the review has been around since before it was okay for women to have short hair.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'd be really curious. I don't really know a lot about Japan during the 20s, so I may be giving them more of a... I don't know. Maybe they were cutting their hair shorter and it was more acceptable earlier than I'm thinking. So I would also be very curious if any listeners have any information about that. I know another otokoyaku who was one of the first to cut her hair short was Kadota Ashiko. She was from 1919 to 1938. She's also a very striking looking otokoyaku whose pictures I've always been like, oh, she's so cool. And I actually, both of them, if you actually listen to recordings of singing back then, they're still singing in a very high operatic kind of voice, which not everyone appreciates nowadays, but a lot of it was just to get their voice to carry before they had microphones. They couldn't do the deep otokoyaku voice because they couldn't project enough to fill the theaters. So it's kind of interesting if anybody has listened. We'll see if we can find one on YouTube to link to. Some of these earlier recordings are very interesting. You're like, that's the otokoyaku singing? What? Then I'm going to jump forward a little bit, or else we'll be here all day. Koshiro Miacca, who is a member from 1960 to 1973. She's one of the 3K Golden Age, along with her classmates Ko Nishiki and Kozuki Noboru, who I've mentioned before. She played Tony in the first West Side Story, and she played Judd Fry in the first Oklahoma. So she was quite the star of the 60s. And we gotta talk about Haruna Yuri. Haruna Yuri is kind of known as the first top star of Moon Troupe. Like when they first started saying, okay, we have official top stars now in the mid-70s. She was also the first Oscar, I believe, in Berubara, The Rose of Versailles.
Yes.
Yay, I got that right. I swear, I forget more things than I learn every year. Don't get old. Anyway, she was the first top star who stepped down from her top star position and moved into Senka. And then as a Senka star, she moved from troupe to troupe, appearing in different shows for a while before she actually retired completely from Takarazuka. So, although many people were kind of shocked when Todoroki Yu decided to do that, she was not the first one. Dun dun dun.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I learned something.
Is she the one who was in the production with... All I remember is it has a chariot in it. It's a Nihon Mono.
Yes, that was actually her final show. It was a Bauhaus production.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy that I know exactly what you're talking about? I can't think of the name of
it. That's impressive.
It's very, very
It's also
famous.
really interesting it's interesting that she left on a Bow Hall production.
I think it was so that she could star in it.
Oh, that makes sense.
I'm going to pop over to Takawiki and check this out because it's annoying me that I can't remember the name. They have reproduced it several times. In fact, they did it just for OGs to come back and do it. And I believe Haruna Yuri came back to play the role again. Okay.
Yeah, I think she did.
It was Eternal Tale is the kind of clumsy English translation of Toa Monogatari. I've actually watched it, and it's very much a Nihon Mono. If you don't like Nihon Mono, you probably won't like this show, but it's, you know, love story with a repressed and really sad ending, and yeah, it's cool. I liked it.
That sounds very Nihon Mono.
Yes. I believe that's everybody that I really needed to hit on from the earlier actresses, like pre-80s. Carly, I know you had a story though, right?
I do have a story. Well, first I want to say, it's very important that I say this, Haruna Yuri now looks so much like my Italian grandmother, except Asian, that it freaks me out. I think about that every time I look at her.
That's
wow. Yeah. But my story, which is a lot better than that, is that so one of the OG who lives in New York is Ako Dax, who was Natsumi Yoko when she was in Takarazuka in the 50s, and she was in Moon Troupe. And I believe it was in September, I went to a very small charity concert thing that she held to benefit the Kumamoto earthquake. Mm-hmm. And she told a story about when they put on Oklahoma, and the woman who traveled to Japan to direct Oklahoma, who has a French name that I'm definitely going to butcher the pronunciation that if I try and say it, but it's on the wiki. She came to see the charity concert. So Ako told the story about when she came to Japan for the first time and saw the Takarazuka girls rehearsing Oklahoma. She was so put off by the Takarazuka makeup, the blue eyeshadow and the false eyelashes and all of that, and she got really huffy and said, "Cowboys do not wear false eyelashes," and walked up to, I believe she said it was Kozuki Noboru, and just pulled the eyelashes off of her face.
Ouch.
So I thought that was interesting.
Wow. Prima donna of a director.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
It was just it was so cool to be in the, I mean, that feels longer ago to me than I guess it was. It was the 60s, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. I guess that was pretty long ago still, but it was so cool to be in the room with people who were there rehearsing the first Western show that Takarazuka ever did.
That is so cool. You know what? That story actually jogged my memory. It reminded me of, I think there was a lot of culture clash between Broadway and Takarazuka around that time, even though they were both trying to kind of adapt to each other, because I heard when they first put on West Side Story, they actually had the original West Side Story director. What's his name? He's really famous. Wow. Blank moment. Anyway, he came and he demanded that the otokoyaku perform the choreography exactly as it was in the original production, including those crazy dance scenes where the otokoyaku, or the male dancers, are like jumping up the fences and doing things like that, which women don't quite have the muscle mass to do. So I guess he was like very demanding during rehearsals, and the actresses were getting really stressed out about being able to meet his very, very high standards. So that sounds along the lines of the eyelash story.
Yeah.
I think
Google says it's Jerome Robin.
I think one of the early West Side Story productions, they also demanded that there be no finale. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. Yeah.
I would be so disappointed.
Well,
I know.
You know, West Side Story. Sorry, a little bit of a spoiler alert if you're not familiar with it at all. But your heart is kind of so crushed at the end that it's one of those shows where it's hard to imagine going straight into a Rockette Shrug.
I guess I can see that from the director's point of view, like not wanting to juxtapose those two things in your art.
Yeah, I guess. But isn't that the Takarazuka thing? It's like, oh, everybody's dead. Time for a review.
Yeah. And that in the 90s production of West Side Story, I'm not sure if that changed, but I remember reading that in Leonie Ray Sticklin's book, I believe.
I just want to say here and now that it is so sad that they never released any of the 90s West Side Stories anywhere. They weren't on TV, they weren't on VHS, and even the photos now, I think they don't have the rights to print any of the photos. Like in some early books you can see them, but if you look at like the anniversary books now, I don't think they actually print the photos.
Oh, wow. That's a new level of copyright protection. I have a copy of this is before I was Nusank. This was back when it was foursome, when there were only 4 troops. So I do have the one from Moon Troupe in the 90s with Makoto Tsubasa, and there are some great pictures. You can probably still find that magazine at like a Takarazuka on or something.
Yeah. I know, every time I see those pictures, I'm like, man, I really want to see the Moon Troupe version of West Side Story from the 90s, because that was an amazing cast. But, well. Our next is going to be a little bit of a trivia corner, maybe? I don't know what we want to call it. I feel like we need a little intro music here. Where I'm going to ask Becca and Carly to give me one Moon Troupe top star that they would like to talk about. And we decided we weren't ahead of time going to tell each other who we picked, so we might have all ended up picking the same person, or maybe not. Who knows? Let's find out. I'm gonna go alphabetically. I guess I'll go with Becca first. So what Otokoyaku top star did you pick?
Okay, well, so to surprise nobody, because I really like Kiria Hinomu, that's who I'm gonna go with.
Yay!
For anyone who knows me. Shock. And actually, I know her top star era a little less well than I do her Nibante era, just because of when I personally lived in Japan. But so she technically started in Flower Troupe, but within a few years transferred. And for me, is someone who is very, just classically has this Skigami feel, in part because I think she does Western musicals very well. Kirian is someone who is like really passionate, really serious. I think there's some video of her as a Takarazuka music school student and yelling at the class below her, but at the same time, she's not without the ability to laugh at herself. As I'm sure anyone or many people listening to this knows, for a number of years she had a bulldog named Finch who she doted on, and it was incredibly sweet. Unfortunately, Finch passed away a few years ago. But on stage, Kirian is about perfect as far as I'm concerned. She has this gorgeous belting voice. She's an amazing dancer. I in particular really liked a lot of the roles that she had in her kind of Nibante-esque era. She did really compelling villain roles, really fun protagonists, like when she played Algernon in Earnest in Love, and I just think she was such a critical part of Moon Troupe in the last 10 years or so.
Aw, I'm going to piggyback on that because I didn't realize Finch had passed away, number one.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
I think it was about 3 years ago. Yeah, I know. And she referred to him, there was a blog post or something that talked about it as her aite or partner, and...
Becca, do you know the story of Finch? Can you tell us about him?
Yeah. So, Kirian, who is, this very serious, very hardworking Takarajian, she got pretty sick around 2003. And she actually, she completely called out of the Tokyo run of Senior Donphon, and then she actually missed her Bao Hall lead. She was supposed to be in Namidabashi, Egaobashi, and Tsukifune Sarada had to sub for her. And unfortunately in Takarazuka, by the time they are calling out of performances, they have to be really, really sick. So thankfully, Kirian was able to make a full recovery, but, in the process of, she suddenly found herself with all this time off and just trying to recover, and during that time, she got Finch, to kind of be, who kind of helped her get through that healing and recovering process. And, ever since then, like, she would bring him to the rehearsal room. I think at one point she inspired Ayana Oto to also get a French bulldog.
That sounds about
If
right.
anyone's ever seen pictures. There also are these amazing pictures. One of her fans or something would make these matching costumes for her, for Finch, that he would wear at every show. And I think even when she graduated, Finch had a matching hakama.
Yes, I remember that.
And even, because I used to watch Iride Machi for Tsukigumi when I lived in Tokyo, and, the cars always come around, for the top stars and the Nibante, and so, Finch was always in the car waiting, and, you'd see him. He was a dog. He didn't really care about the crowds or anything, but he was really adorable.
It was so wonderful, though, because she usually would hold him up out the window to show everybody that Finch was there, and everybody, like every fan club and every person there would be like, oh, Finch is there today! It like brightened everyone's day.
Oh, and she named Finch after J. Pierpont Finch from How to Succeed, which was her first Shinko lead.
I'm just dying over here.
I love that
so
story.
Cute.
It's so cute.
Everything is so cute.
You can't go wrong with Kirian. All right, Carly, how about you? Who is your otokoyaku top star choice?
Okay, much farther away, I picked Tsurugi Miyuki, who I actually saw for the first time when I went to see Dream a Dream in Japan in 2013, which was one of the 100th anniversary specials. And there is a singing team and a dancing team, and she was on the singing team. She has an amazing voice. Absolutely amazing voice. And then after Dream a Dream, I came home and went back and watched a bunch of her reviews from the 80s. So she's definitely known for her singing. She actually, Mi-chan reminds me of her. Every time I look at Mi-chan, I think of Tsurugi Miyuki. Yeah. And, well, I guess both because they're both amazing singers, but also because of Mi-chan's like Showa era style. I think they just like remind me of each other.
And she was the first she led the first production of Me and My Girl, right?
Yes, she led the first production of Me and My Girl, and I believe it was so popular that it ended up running for a year or something.
Sounds right.
They did the Takarazuka run and the Tokyo run, and then I think there may have been a show in between, but if there was, it was only one, and then they just went right back for a second run because it was so popular.
Yeah.
And yeah. She is it's interesting to watch her reviews because she doesn't dance that much. I guess she's like not that much of a dancer, but her voice is really beautiful. It's probably not going to come through that well I know it doesn't come through that well when you watch the fuzzy VHS rips of the 80s. She was top star from 1985 to 1990, so that's right at the beginning of the era when they started showing stuff on video. But having heard her voice live, it's really, really incredible.
Nice.
Now, here's where I challenge you, Carly.
Okay.
Do you know what her nickname is?
Utako.
Yeah. Can you explain that to everybody?
Yeah. I guess it roughly means person who sings.
Yes. I always thought that was awesome that was her like nickname in Takarazuka. Yeah.
Oh, more trivia. She was what's her name? I don't remember. She was the mom / villain in the Japanese dub of Tangled.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Does that character have a name?
So cool.
Yeah. I'm sure it does, but I don't remember. It's Rapunzel's evil mom.
That's so cool. So totally unprepared. I'm gonna say Suzukaze Mayo because now I'm feeling the 80s love after what Carly was talking about. So actually, I met Suzukaze Mayo not face to face, but my first interaction with the Suzukaze Mayo being was in Rurouni Kenshin. She was the voice actress for Kenshin in the anime, and I was in love with that anime when I was a kid. I have a Kenshin tattoo. I really shouldn't be admitting these things. That my dad threatened to kick me out of the house for because I wasn't supposed to be getting tattooed as a middle schooler, but these things happen. So anyway,
middle school.
Jen, I had no idea you had such a rebellious streak.
Wait, who tattooed you in middle school?
So I ran with a slightly tougher crowd in middle school. Yeah. So anyway, I came into Takarazuka fandom and I was like, Suzukaze Mayo, why does that name sound so familiar? And then I was like, oh, it's fate that Moon Troupe is my favorite troupe, and Suzukaze Mayo was one of the top stars of Moon Troupe. She was a top star in the early 90s following after Utako, and she played a lot of very fairy type
sometimes roles, literally,
I want to say.
Yeah.
Yes, she was the first Puck, which I wasn't a huge fan of that show, but I loved Suzukaze Mayo, and her singing is also really good. Actually,
it's beautiful, and
I think
her
it was one
range
of
is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was one of the TMP specials where she sang Unchained Melody, and it still gives me shivers every time I hear it. I'm gonna see if I can find it. If it's not on YouTube, I might break my usual rule and put it up just because the recording is so old now. I don't know. What do you guys think? Can I get away with that?
If you clip
Being
a song,
naughty?
yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay, I'll put it up because I already have it clipped. It's on my computer.
Well, there you go.
I watch it all the time. It's so awesome. So I really like her. She's really cool, and she's done a lot of stuff even after retiring from Takarazuka that's really interesting to watch and listen to. So check her out, everyone. She's really cool. All right.
Can I just add one thing about her?
Yeah.
I thought it was, I guess I noticed this when they announced Grand Hotel again, that Tsukigumi's going to be doing it for their next Grand Theater show. And I went back and looked at her version and saw that she was playing not the character who I would consider the lead, kind of much less stereotypical otakuyaku character. And I just thought it was really interesting, and that she's probably one of the only people in the history of the review who can pull off roles like that and still be cool. Yeah, she just has such an interesting vibe.
Yeah, she's playing played back then the character that Mia Rudica is playing this time, right? Kind of an older man.
Yes. Older and I believe terminally ill.
Oh wow, okay.
So not the glamorous otakuyaku lead role that most people think of.
Yeah. Can you imagine going from Puck to that, or from that back to Puck? She really had not just a vocal range, she had a big acting range too. So,
yeah, definitely.
Cool stuff. All right, let's mix it up. So the next one is going to be Top Musume Yaku. Carly, who did you choose?
I chose Ayano Kanami, who I really, really like. I was saying before we started recording that I was just browsing through her shows on the wiki and realized she turned 40 this year, and then my head exploded.
I cannot believe Mihoko is 40.
22.
Wow.
I can't believe she's 40. Oh my god. But I love her. She's, speaking of incredible vocal ranges, she has such a beautiful voice. She still does a lot of OG shows, anytime she was in a lot of the 100th anniversary specials, so anytime there's that type of special or a concert where a lot of OGs gather, she tends to be in those shows. And if you're in Japan and you have the opportunity to go see something like that, even if it doesn't look all that interesting otherwise, I would legitimately call hearing Mihoko sing live a bucket list item. It's incredible. And she has a legit operatic voice, and she can also sing in otokuyaku range better than most otokuyaku, and it's just mind-blowing. But she's also really adorable. I think she's a pretty versatile actress, and she is my favorite Gwendolyn ever. Ernest in Love is one of my favorite shows, and I thought she was such a great Gwendolyn.
Even when she was like really young still, before she became top Musume-yaku, when she was still in Flower Troupe, she brought a lot of talent to the lead roles that she had, like in Bao Hall. Like, she played Juliet, she played Manon,
yes,
she played Susanna in Figaro. Like, you could tell there were still rough edges back then, but even so, like, she gave some pretty amazing performances. Yeah,
she's a really beautiful actress, and I'm thinking, I guess I'm probably thinking of maybe Golden Steps. Even when she's just dancing, I feel like she's acting. She's very emotive even when she's not saying anything, and I really admire that.
I feel like while she was top star, a lot of people really admired her more than at a time when a lot of Western fandom didn't pay a lot of attention to Musume-yaku. Like, everyone seemed to agree that she was something special. So
I can't argue.
All right, Becca, how about you?
Can I actually go last? Because Carly once again took what I was going to say. And I wanted to hear you pick Jen, because I have a couple of ways I can go.
Drats. Well, I was torn, and then I decided I had to pick Hatsukaze June, because we got to see her perform live this last summer when she came to New York City. And just because I'm such a history geek and such a vintage Takarazuka geek, like, my heart was just going like crazy to see her on stage. And even though obviously she's gotten much older, and I think it was difficult for her to be performing, I think her vision might be going. I'm not sure. I got that impression maybe sometimes when she was moving on the stage. But even so, like, her performance had so much energy and so much chemistry with the other actresses. I could see why they had cast her to perform, and it was just so cool to see her. So, who is she? She was like the first official Musume-yaku top star of Moon Troupe. Going back to like the early 70s was when she started kind of monopolizing all of the lead female roles in the performances, and apparently she stole everyone's heart, because she was in, like, when I look back at all my old graphs, and I was hoping I could find some articles that I translated, but I was not having any luck earlier today. But she appeared in graphs so often. You could tell she was a fan favorite. And she was the first Marie Antoinette in the Rose of Versailles that they put on. And she performed that role in 74 and in 76. And I think that's a big deal. Like, because of the attention that show brought to Takarazuka, I think it's really important. Everybody who was in that show and everything that they contributed, kind of, the Takarazuka we have today wouldn't be there if it weren't for the actresses who did Berubara in the 70s. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So, yeah, I think she's really pretty cool. And I really wanted to get her autograph, but... Oh. You could tell she wasn't ready to be approached every time she was leaving the stage doors. So we were all like, should we? No, we won't. Should we? No, we won't. But oh my gosh, it was so cute, because Chihiro-san, like, every time they left the stage doors, was such a gentleman. Like, they always left our turn.
Oh, that's so cute.
I was like,
this episode is just killing me with cute stories.
That's adorable.
It was cute.
So I get the impression about her that on one hand, she's very much the historically quintessential Musume-yaku because of her history and her popularity. But on the other hand, she's very upfront, I guess. She is a very bold personality based on the stories that I've heard. And I love that gap in people. I don't remember if this was if it's in the 100th anniversary DVD box set or if I read it on Twitter while it was going on. But on one of the days that she was at the 100th anniversary festival, this is the one that was over 3 or 4 days in April, where they just had every OG they could possibly contact come back and sing one song and then talk for a little while. One of her talk days, someone said she was telling the story about how they stopped having live animals in their shows because I guess back in the day, if they did a Nihomono or something and there was a horse in the show, they would have an actual horse on the stage. And she said that they had to stop because one of the horses just took a dump on the stage in the middle of the show. And she just said it like so frankly, I guess, and that's such a clash with her image. I thought it was hilarious.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, she's not like you think of like the fairy Musume Yaku pretty type. She had a very like bold features, so I think yeah,
definitely.
That's cool.
Well, I think she started off as an Otokoyaku, didn't she?
Did she?
Very briefly. I'm gonna check.
Right. Wow, that I was gonna say I don't think that's ever happened. Well, no, that has.
Yeah.
No, you're right because of her height.
Oh yeah, only for a year though, so that's not that much.
It was a little different back then too. Like today they take height into account, but they also like look at facial features and things. But I remember a story that some OGs were telling where what they did is they'd line up the class of everybody who was in that group of students like that year. They'd line you up by height and they drew a line down the middle. And everybody on one side was a Musumeyaku and everybody on the other side was an Otokoyaku.
Wow.
Yeah. They were like telling this story, and you know how they get when they're like telling stories and they're like flailing their hands around and like being really sarcastic. They're like, and so I got stuck as an Otokoyaku because I was one away from being on the other side of the line.
Wow. But she definitely has a Musumeyaku voice.
Yeah.
Yes. I have to admit, like, the first time I heard it, I wasn't sure, but it definitely grew on me. It's very strong.
Yeah.
She almost has more
even
of a
still
Broadway voice, I feel.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, there's a big difference between a Takarazuka singing voice and a Broadway singing voice.
Yeah, they sometimes overlap, but not always.
Very rarely. Like, I appreciate Takarazuka singing voices, but like when we went and saw the OG show this summer, like Mizu's voice had changed completely. I was like, Mizu suddenly has a Broadway voice. When did this happen?
That's actually who I was thinking of, was Mizu specifically. Yeah.
All right, Becca, are you ready?
All right, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
So I think I'm actually going to go with Danrei, if just because she had an interesting career. She started off as Makoto Tsubasa's second partner, and then she actually went into Senka for about a year, and then transferred into Star Troupe, where she was Kozuki Wataru's partner for a few years. But what's interesting about Danrei is that she's actually, since graduating, she's become a household name. She's been really famous for starring in dramas and a number of movies. And then also, another fun fact, if you watch the cinema adaptation of Phoenix Wright, she actually plays the role of Maya Fey's older sister. Talk about like your fandoms colliding. Danchan is not a great singer, but at the same time I do appreciate her acting a lot. And there's something about her, I would say the same thing about Mommy. Like, it's not necessarily that it's good or skilled, and yet it's really, really watchable.
Yeah. I felt like she was a good balance for Mommy.
Yes, completely.
Makoto Tsubasa was, I always said she was like the Otokoyaku who had the most balls. She just felt very like testosterone masculine, not in the like, ooh, I'm gonna beat you up kind of way, but in the, hey, I'm a guy, I own everything around me kind of way. And I thought Danchan like managed to balance her very well.
Agreed.
Yeah, same. I always thought it was hilarious that she had like no chemistry with Wataru though, because Wataru could seduce a broomstick.
Yeah. And she and Wataru were only partners for a couple of shows, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. I think actually it was most of Wataru's career, because Tonami only came in for the
That's
last
right, it was
two.
at the very end. Okay.
Yeah, but Danrei was my backup choice, so between the two of us, we did both of the ones we wanted to.
Danrei was never a huge favorite of mine. I don't know what it was, but I did feel like she fit with Mommy.
She's not like a traditional partner, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I think she stands on her own a lot more than most Misameyaku do.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire that in a lot of ways. I think it was to a degree that it was seen as a negative in a lot of people's eyes, because she didn't mesh. And I think you're right in that she was a good balance for Mommy, but it was very much a counterbalancing versus a combination, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she wasn't like a soft match. They were both like strong enough that they could meet each other. Yeah.
That's just an era of Tsukigumi that I really enjoy, is the Mami and Danrei era, just because it was so wonderfully weird.
So weird.
Yes. I always thought that was just what Takarazuka was. And then I was disillusioned. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's do a couple of random Moon Troupe actresses that you think we should talk about, either OGs or current. Becca, would you like to go first so we can't steal anyone from you?
Ooh, okay. So I'm going to go... Shoot, there's like 3 different ways I could take this, and I'm trying to decide which one.
This was so tough, but we had to cut it down or we would have been talking for hours, so...
Alright, Jen, pick 1 or 2.
2.
Okay, 2 is Yoshizuki Eri, who is a, who was a long-time Moon Troupe upperclassman, who started in, I believe, the late 80s. Was it Wataru who was her classmate?
Possibly.
Could be.
That sounds right. I don't know.
But who, it was never someone who was really on the star track, but had played a lot of really fun character roles throughout her time in Takarazuka.
She played a lot of crazy doctors.
Yes, thank you. She was the crazy doctor in Seal of Roses. I feel like she just did that kind of a role a lot. But at the same time, even when she was playing older roles, had this very kind of sexy charm to her.
She's always going to be a favorite of mine. She was one of the first actresses that I wrote to as they were retiring, just as a, you're awesome, I've always appreciated you, kind of congratulations on retiring. And she was the first one who wrote back. Like, you know how they send out like a very traditional like portrait of them in Hakama with their like farewell message? Like, usually those just go to the fan clubs, but she actually sent me one in America, and
that's so nice.
She's so cool. She's like the big sister I always wanted.
Jen, can I cheat and give another shout out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll try to be fast. Okay, so
we're doing 2, so you're fine.
Oh, am I? Okay, good. So the other one who I really want to talk about is Shirosaki Ai, who is in 86 and graduated with Sena June in 2009. So once again, someone who didn't rise to top star, but had a lot of really prominent Musumeyaku roles throughout her time. During the period when Asako didn't have a partner, she played opposite of her. Like, she had one of the lead roles in, what's the name of it? The Genji show. Yume no Ukihashi?
Floating Bridge of Dreams, yeah.
Yes. She also played Daisy in The Great Gatsby. And for me, she was someone who was very traditional Musumeyaku in a lot of ways, but she also just had a lot of spunk. Two of my favorite roles that she did, one was Cecily in Earnest in Love, so really just playing up that whole kawaii as power kind of image. And then also, it was a little unusual, but she got to play the role of Jackie in Me and My Girl, which is a role that almost always goes to Otokoyaku, and she had to split it with Asamirio, but I just thought she blew that performance out of the water.
Yeah. Everybody was really, really sad because everybody thought she was going to be Kirion's partner. I think based on, like, how she played Cecily opposite Kirion.
Yeah.
In Earnest in Love. I don't know.
Yeah, and she and Kirion were paired together a few different times in different places, but
yeah,
it didn't happen. And she still has a blog, and she teaches dance classes. Occasionally she's in dance performances, but for me, she was someone who never made top, but I thought still had some really interesting roles along the way, and who also is hilarious off stage. I got in trouble for saying this once, but I've heard her described before as an otokoyaku in a dress, which is not to say that musumeyaku are not, like, awesome on their own, but just, like, the way that she would, like, walk down the Hana no Michi, like, very authoritatively, with her fan club behind her, and it's a good thing in my opinion.
She tended to wear pants outside, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
Which was unusual for a musumeyaku. Yeah, Inimachi and Damachi. I remember that.
I think she might have even said that she wanted to be an otokoyaku, but wasn't put there because of her height.
Yeah. All right. Carly, do you want to go next, or do you want to go last?
I'll go next, I guess.
All right, go for it.
I'm going current, and somebody who I think deserves more shout-outs than she gets is Kisuke Yuma, who is she's one of the sadly not Star Trek 95ths because there's too many Star Trek 95ths. So I think that class is crazy, and there are a lot of people in that class with a lot of talent who are taking backseat roles just because there aren't enough roles for all of them. But Maevon, I love her. I love her so much. She's got that, like, real kind of otokoyaku sex appeal, I think. Like, she can be really hilarious, but she's just so tall and otokoyaku looking, she can turn on that charm switch and it's really, really lethal. But she's also she's really funny, and I think she's a really versatile actress. And one of my favorite shows in the past few years, hands down, was the version of AN that she was in. And she's so good in it, both in the first part and in the little review they did at the end. If you want to get a taste of what she's like, I think it's a really, really good show to watch.
That's cool.
Wait, I'm trying to remember whose version she was in, because I've seen those both before.
She was in Asami Jun's version.
Okay.
Because they're like
they're both
bros.
They're both blurring together in this beautiful mesh of high school cliches.
Yeah. Ugh, I love that show. It's so it's like it was made especially for me. It's just perfect. But she's also this hasn't been released yet. I think it's coming out at the end of January, but I was looking at the pictures from the production of King Arthur that was just Tamakichi's first.
I want to see that so
show.
Badly. Yes.
I want to see it so bad too. Maevon is the villain, I guess, and her makeup is ridiculous, and it just looks really good. I'm really, really glad that she got a good role and an interesting role, and I can't wait to see it.
She's one of those otokoyaku who somehow projects being bigger, not just taller, but just she seems to have like that big frame, even though when she's off stage, of course, she's a girl, not a guy, but like she just, I don't know, when she's on stage, I believe it. if that makes sense.
Yeah, she's such an otakoyaku.
Yeah. Yeah, I like her a lot. And I think she gets a lot of love, but I think you have to be there for the live performances to see it, because it's little things that aren't necessarily going to be caught on tape. But, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else for us?
I'm good with one.
Harsh. All right. I guess I picked...
No, I mean, I'm just not that knowledgeable.
I picked 2 OGs. You're knowledgeable. Sorry, I'm coming back to this. But we've already talked, we talked Manaki Reika and Tamakichi to death in that other episode. So
That's true.
My OGs, one of them, I'm just going to briefly talk about her, but Enoki Toyan was a classmate of Ryu Masaki who retired in 2009 with Elizabeth. And she was just one of those very sweet otokoyaku who never really had any big roles. She was always kind of in the chorus. But everybody knew who she was, who was a fan of Moon Troupe, just because she was so kind to her fans, and everybody in Moon Troupe was always talking about the really nice thing that she'd done for them recently. Aww. So her name always kept coming up. And I remember when I was still a new fan and I didn't really know anybody, and I would be at Irimachi and Damachi all the time, and everybody in the class, their fan clubs were still pretty small, and the daihyo, the head of Toyan's club, I would always end up passing her as we were leaving. Toyan's club would be coming or going, I don't know, we would always end up passing in the street, and we'd always both kind of nod and smile at each other, and I was just even Toyan's daihyo is super sweet and kind. That always left an impression with me. But the real reason that I want to talk about Toyan is there's a tradition in Moon Troupe now. On the final night of a performance, after they've given all the speeches, they do their jump. And this started in Toyan's final show because she was retiring. When they give their speeches, in the final curtain call, they were Sena June was Toyan, do you have any last words? And Toyan was I'm just so happy, I want to jump, and I want everyone to jump with me. And so they did a countdown, and they all jumped together, threw their hands in the air and jumped. And it's just been tradition ever since then that Moon Troupe does that in the last day of their performance. And I just thought that was so cool that she started this new tradition that's been going strong all these years. So
I've seen that before. I never realized where that started.
Yeah, that was Toyan. Toyan jumping for joy. Because she's a sweetheart. The other actress that I wanted to talk about was Sawaki Rizu, who also sadly has retired. Aww. She retired in 2012 with Kirian. She was a singer more than anything else, and you might know her if you've seen the 2009 Elizabeth. She actually played Madame Wolf in it. Although normally she's an otokoyaku, and she just has this amazing voice that I don't know what it was that made her stand out to me the first time, but I don't know. I don't want to say fell in love with her, because it wasn't like that, but I just thought she was super, super cool. And I decided I wanted to go to her tea party. And I was kind of oh my god, is this cheating? Are we allowed to go to the tea party of somebody who's whose fan club you're not in? Because I was I know you can kind of get away with it if they're in a different troupe, but you're really not supposed to do it if they're in the same troupe. I was but it's not really a tea party. It's an ochanomikai, not an ochakai. I was does that count? I agonized over this forever, and I finally ended up going, you know what? I'm going, because she's awesome, and she invited me to go. So I went, and it was awesome, and it was so small. It was at this little restaurant that was down in the basement of this place, this building that was on a side street, just a block down from the theater. I was why are we at this spaghetti bar?
Hey, at least they fed you.
No, that was it. It was I was so this is an ochanomikai. We actually get food. They kept bringing out dishes and taking dishes and bringing out dishes. I was this is an 8-course meal. What is going on? It was awesome. I had so much fun. And so I became the Sawakirizu addict, and I went to like every one of her ochakai after that. She was just super cool and super sweet, and I remember when we, like, her fan club was small enough that they'd do 2 shots, like, just you and the actress with ochakai, and she'd always be like, come a little closer, or she'd be like, oh my god, I have to, like, stand really far back because your face is so big, like, all these crazy things. She was super cute. I loved Rizu a lot, and she was so talented that, yeah, I was sad to see her leave. Moon Troupe is a little poorer without her. But...
yeah. This could probably be a whole episode in of itself. It probably depends on the troupe and who your star is. I've gone to plenty of other people's ochakai, even when it was in the same troupe as my star, but I guess it really depends on the troupe and kind of what some of the individual dynamics are. I don't know.
Honestly, I think it depends on intent, too, in a way. Like, if you're going to every single one, then obviously you're really supporting that actress. And, I don't know, that might be more of a no-no.
All right, to summarize everything and to finish on a quick burst of energy here, we're going to mix things up, and we're going to have a little bit of a competition, which will probably be a hot mess. Becca is going to be our game show host, and Carly and Jen are going to duke it out to see who can get some facts about our Moon Troupe top stars. All right, Becca, take it away.
All right, so quick, one fact about Daiichi Mao.
Daiichi Mao became a top star when she was very young, and she was also double top star with Haruna Yuri for a little while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All right. 1 point to Jen. And then also I'll add that most of the stage names have to get approved by the company. And Daiichi Mao's kind of slipped through, but it actually kind of has a dirty connotation in Japanese.
Does it really?
You've never heard this before?
No.
I'd have to look it up specifically, but yeah, but it's something like, I forget what the first part is, but then it almost sounds like Shimao, or to like do some, I'll find this somewhere.
Which is interesting because she's now a household name under the same stage name that she always used. So... that's cool, I guess.
See, there's your fact, Carly. There's your fact. Yeah, she is a hugely famous stage actress in Japan now.
And a drama and movie actress. And if you haven't yet, I recommend watching Atelier on Netflix because it's great.
Yes. Plus, she gets younger every year.
Yes. Yes, she does. It's terrifying.
Okay. So, Amami Yuki and Kusei Seika, which one is best suited to be the next James Bond?
What?
What? I think she just changed the rules. Definitely Kusei Seika, because she's, like, coldly sexy. Like, if you've ever seen her perform, she just has that laid-back, cool, sexy thing.
That's true, but I saw her in a talk show a couple of years ago, and she just looked like a mom in a hoodie.
Off stage, yes.
And does anyone have any actual facts to add, or?
Amami Yuki was the youngest top star ever.
Seika. Ugh. And Kusei Seika actually waited while Amami Yuki was top star before she stepped back into the line of succession to become top star.
Yeah.
Okay. Shibuki June, Free Word Association, Jen, go.
Crazy hair.
Carly?
Dance.
Do I lose points for that because I didn't talk about her dancing? I'm sorry, but have you seen Shibuki June's hairstyle? Like, let's get serious. Okay, I'm gonna put the butterfly clip hairstyle up, and everyone can judge for themselves because, yeah.
I have another fact. Isn't it true that she doesn't know how to ride the bus?
Really?
Yeah,
Rika?
I feel like I saw that on a variety show.
Rika has a lot of... Oh, crazy fun fact about Rika. So, it turns out when I was in Japan this summer, I went and hung out in this town and, like, watched the summer festival. And as I was hanging out in the bar with a friend who was, like, a former student of mine, he was like, oh yeah, one of my friends is, like, cousins with Shibuki June. She was there yesterday at the festival, like, in the opening ceremony. And I was like, what? I did know that she was from the area that I used to work in because I may have picked that place as a location to work because she was from there.
Good job.
Yes, possibly.
Not
that I'm a crazy stalker or anything, I promise.
Alright, so any fun facts about Ayaki now?
She plays crazy long-haired villains very well.
She does.
I think one of my favorite villains of hers might be, and I'm not sure if I'm remembering the right show, but like for the past 3 weeks I've been meaning to get back and watch this show, especially since Yuri on Ice is becoming so popular. She did this show, she did, called Lure of the Icon. Totally recommended for everyone. Star Troupe 1998, starring Asaji Saki, and like the main characters are a former ballet dancer. And so it's about former ballet dancers and like the mafia and the KGB, and you know, there's all this crazy stuff going on, and like the KGB or the ballet dancer is like trying to defect, and like all this stuff is going on. And if I remember correctly, Ayaki now is like super young and like is the leader of a cult called the Lucifer cult. Yeah, so that crazy, like, long-haired villain thing started a long time ago.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That sounds like classic Hoshigumi.
This was such a good show. I've been meaning to rewatch it. Yes. I will have to and give a little review of it because it's so good.
I was watching the 1992 Puck in preparation for this episode, so I got to see her Helen, which is
so small.
something else.
My favorite show of hers is Epiphany, where she, I believe, plays both twins, one female and one male. Is that right? I haven't watched in a while.
Yes.
But I love that show.
Yes.
It's really good, and she's really good in it. And it's also unexpectedly hilarious. Like, the background characters are hilarious, but she's also great in it.
She's also, like, she was in the Angels at Dawn, which is, like, the Western shows that Hoshigumi, the Star Troupe, did. There were like two, and one was kind of a sequel to the other one, and she was in Angels at Dawn, and she played a very cool cowboy.
Nice.
That's just my fact. Sorry.
Oh, well, so Jen, here's one for you. Tell us something about Ryuma Saki that we would not necessarily know.
Oh my gosh. She used to own a blue Russian cat. No. Does that count?
Yes,
That counts. I didn't know that.
That totally counts.
She also totally loves stained glass windows.
Huh. I know there's that glass
you said
shop
something you wouldn't have known, so I'm going for like random things.
I know there's a glass shop in Takarazuka, but I've never actually been in there, so I'm not sure what they sell, if they sell any kind of stained glass, or if it's just, I don't know, other things.
I'm not sure. I haven't been in either.
Yeah.
But I think she also went to a Catholic school.
Huh, okay.
Just, you know, keeping the random things rolling.
Alright, so Carly, last person we have on here is Tamakiro. So, your impression.
My impression? Actually kind of like 180 since she became top star. I probably, based on my own projection of what I wanted to happen in Tsukigumi, kind of thought she was a little ruthless and really, really pushing to become top star. And since she's become top star, she strikes me more as an adorable golden retriever.
Oh.
Wow. My impression of Tamaki Ryo is forever and always going to be Laertes, like, running down the aisle, like, with his sword in his hand, screaming, because that was, like, the first time I ever noticed her as a Kentu. Was in Hamlet. And I was like, okay, this girl with the huge beak is gonna go places.
I think she was the Mad Hatter or some role like that in the Alice in Wonderland show that Mirio did, and I remember that role standing out a lot. Has anyone else seen this?
Nope.
I have it on disc, and it's the only Sawaki Rizu show that I haven't watched yet, so I'm kind of like holding on to it for a really horrible day.
Oh.
I haven't watched it yet.
All right, so now we're going to quickly run through all the Musumeyaku. Let's see, so we're going back to Kuroki Hitomi. All right, quick, you can come up with a fact.
She was like Ken 2 or something when she became top star, and she and Daichi Mao were the first super golden combi.
Yes, because they actually pretended like they were married. Like, Kuroki Hitomi's mindset was on stage and off stage, they were husband and wife.
There's so much cute in this episode, I can't deal with it.
It's really cute.
She's also a hugely famous actress now.
That's right, yeah. All right, next up, Kodama Ai.
Something about her name always makes me think of toys. What is that Japanese toy? Is it Kodomo? You know that?
Well, there's Kodacha, which I know is yeah.
Yeah, every time I hear her name, I'm just like, toy love. I don't know why, but yeah. I actually, like, I've seen her in a lot of, she always comes back for the specials, like, as an OG, which I think is awesome, because it shows she's got that love. And she was an awesome, awesome match with Utako.
Yes, I agree.
They made a good pair.
She managed to, like, dance around her really beautifully in a way that didn't emphasize how Utako wasn't really dancing. I like her a lot.
All right. So, next up, Asano Kayo. Hey, I'm going to steal this one. She had a few different partners while she was in Takarazuka, including Suzukase Mayo and Amami Yuki. Did I miss anyone?
No, I think just those.
That sounds right. Yeah, she was like one of my first Musumeyaku loves. I don't know why. I latched onto her and I was like, she's awesome! I love her! She is so cool in the Afterglow of Air. Like, super spoiler, when she dies, it's just like, it makes me cry every time.
Oh. One of these days I'm going to watch this show. Okay. Kasahana Mai.
Kasahana Mai is a really beautiful dancer, and until I actually haven't seen her much, I feel like, in the last couple years, but until, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, was always following the OG crew around for dance specials. Like, she was in, I think she was in Dancing Crazy and Dancing Crazy 2, and a bunch of the 100th anniversary specials and stuff like that. And she looks like a vampire. She, like, hasn't aged at all.
Yes! That, and she's so thin. So thin.
Okay, Amy Kidada.
So young. She and Rika had one of the biggest age gaps when they became top stars together. I think she was like Ken 1.5 or something like that.
She and Chie were classmates. Yeah, she was extremely young. And yet she and Rika actually had very good chemistry, I thought.
Yeah, but that's what made the one show so creepy. The one about the little girl and the guy.
At the end of A Long Spring?
Yes! I've never been able to really like that show. Like, sometimes I like the cute shows, but I was always just like, this show is creepy. Why is he creeping on this little girl? I think it was super creepy because you knew they were actually, like, had that big of an age difference. And then all of a sudden, all the other shows just seem so wrong.
Yeah.
But Emi Kurara's final, like, her music salon, which is, like, the little dinner show that Musumeyaku get before they retire, like, Chie came as a special guest, and Chie was, like, this little Ken 4 baby, and yeah, it was cute. What did Chie sang, like, one of the songs from Elizabeth?
Yeah, she sang Saigo no Dansu.
Yeah.
And then Michan was her guest on the other day, and she sang All of Me, which for me was one of those early moments when I really fell for her, so that has a special place in my heart. All right, so this was almost my choice for Miss Mayaku, but Aono Yuki.
My favorite Musumeyaku now and forever. and I think I totally creeped her out in New York because I was like following her around all the time. Because I was like, oh my god, it's Aono Yuki! Like, she's so cool and she was so amazing. Like, and she and Kirian were like the golden combi to end all golden combis. And I loved her to pieces, but I also got that feeling that, and I think it's just because she was a little shy, even though she doesn't come across like that in social media, but like she was always a little cold to the fans when you were like face to face with her. Like I went to her like Ochakai and she was just like, what am I doing here? I want to go home. Kind of an impression. And I was like, it's your last Ochakai, honey. Smile. It was kind of sad. But she's so cool, and if you follow her on Twitter, is it Twitter? I think it's Twitter.
She has a Twitter.
Like,
and a Facebook.
Full of joy and like an amazing person, and she's such a good dancer and
she's a beautiful dancer.
I love her.
She's getting married soon, I think.
In Beauty and the Beast.
Oh,
is like
that's exciting.
The Belle. Is she getting married?
She's
That's
getting
cool.
married. She announced it like, I don't know, I don't remember, last month maybe. But yes, Belle. That's actually the only one of Kirian's top shows that I've seen. Isn't that terrible?
We are gonna fix this. We are gonna fix this. Next time we hang out together. Oh my gosh.
And I love her too. I've just never seen her top shows. It's so bad.
You gotta watch Der Zigeunerbaum. Okay. It's good. And all the Germans are gonna laugh at that pronunciation because I know that was really bad German. But yeah.
Even though Marimo and Kirian, Marimo was class of 2005, right?
She's 04.
4.
Okay, so even though she and Kirian had this 10-year age gap, I thought they both had this very mature chemistry together, which I really, really liked.
Like, I think out of all the Top Star runs, like, I've translated almost all the shows that they had together because for me, I feel like a good dialogue is what I really enjoy in a show, and because they had that maturity, they had a lot of really good dialogues and plots in a lot of their shows that I really appreciated. I was listening to the soundtrack to Beauty and the Beast this week, and I realized that because it's like that fairy tale feel to it, it's like perfect textbook Japanese for somebody who's learning Japanese. Like all of the songs in Beauty and the Beast use the mas endings or the ru endings, like, and it's like te imas and all that, and I was like, this is like beautiful Japanese that you would never find anywhere else.
That's true.
It would actually be really good for someone who's trying to learn Japanese.
That's really cool.
Okay, so last person on our list is current top Musumeyaku Manaki Reika.
Chappie!
This isn't a fact, but I was really hoping that they would just like make her the actual top star and have a matriarchy because I love her and she's the best.
I think the first time I noticed Chappie was when she was an otakoyaku, but she was temporarily playing a musumeyaku role, and she was actually paired up with Masaki for that. Hey, that was Der Zigeunerbaum, so we do have to watch that, Carly.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, I was like, these two are terrible together. Why put them together? This is awful. Chappie wasn't quite there yet, and Masaki was not quite there yet either. So, and then lo and behold, they became a top combi.
I'm always impressed with these Musumeyaku who become top stars when they're very, very young and maybe don't have the chops at the very beginning, but really kind of earn their way. And I feel like Chappie is now this goddess force to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm. I felt the same way about Rano Hana, that she wasn't nearly as strong at the beginning as when she finished.
That's true.
Yeah, I felt that way about Sakura no Ayane. Yeah.
I was going to say my first impression of Chappie was, I believe, like a Christmas TV special from 2012 that had the just the top star combinations from every troupe on it, and they did a real quick thing, and they talked to each of them briefly at the end, and Chappie was freaking terrified. She looked like she was going to hyperventilate and pass out on television. And now she's a goddess force to be reckoned with, as Becca put it. Like, she's gonna play Elizabetta in Grand Hotel, and it's gonna be freaking amazing. I can't believe how much she's grown, and I love her.
I just think it's really cool that she and Tamakichi are only like a year apart classmate-wise. So they would have been cool at the music school together at the same time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you almost never see that in a top kombi for them to be that close in Gakunen.
And one of the other ones I can think of was also Moon Troupe. I think Asano Kayo and Amami Yuki were only a year apart.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I guess it's more likely to happen.
Full of trivia I didn't even know I had. Who won,
right.
Becca?
I did. Sorry, I wasn't really keeping score. If we get more prepared for this next time, I'll actually pull out my Beanball and Boo stick back from when I was a Japanese English teacher.
Yes! Bing bong, bing bong!
I'm glad you know what I'm talking about, Shen. I still have mine.
That's awesome. Oh, Lord. Thank you. That was fun.
It was fun.
I hope you, the listeners, also enjoyed that. And with that, I think we're done with Moon Troupe. If you have any impressions, facts, corrections, things you'd like to add for us, please do. We'd love to hear them. Drop us a note in our blog or our Twitter account or our Facebook account, all of which are linked off of kathian.net/Takarazuka podcasts. And thank you. Many thanks to Michael B. and the Arcanum String Quartet for their wonderful arrangement of Sumire no Hana Sakugoro. And thank you, listeners, for enjoying our podcast.